Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks very much. Thanks you all for being here. The first thing I'd like to do is put into the record a partial list that my office pulled together of nationwide injunctions against the Biden administration that my Republican colleagues celebrated and rejoiced in. So this is a bit of a what side are you on, who's in power right now type of debate we're having. The second thing that I'd like to do is to point out that the discomfort to fury, that's kind of the general range, about decisions against the Trump administration may actually have a lot to do with the unprecedented lawlessness and law-breaking of the Trump administration rather than a weird cabal of judges trying to intrude. And it rolls into something that's very important to the court right now, which is threats to judges and to their families, which I think there's significant evidence to show has been orchestrated and is systematized. It obviously starts at the top with people like Trump and Musk making threats about impeachment and whipping up. In the case of Musk, he has curated a whole armada of characters, to put it nicely, on X, who, when he targets an individual, barrage that individual with abuse and threats. The idea that Musk does not know that he has this curated armada of, let's just say, not entirely all there individuals who are willing to go and harass and threaten when he's identified a target seems unlikely, seems like he knows, seems like it's deliberate. And in that regard, I'd like to put into the record a letter that I wrote to Judge Bredar, who is the new head of the Judicial Security and Independence Taskforce. For the first time, the judiciary's felt it has to put together a task force to deal with the campaign of threats that begins at the top with Trump and Musk and then works its way down to where individual judges are not only critiqued, that's fair game, but they're threatened. They're threatened with impeachment to the point where the Chief Justice has had to stand up and say, no, no, no. If you disagree with the decision, that's an appealable issue, not an impeachable issue. So I ask that both be put into the record, both my letter regarding what they have to do. Here's my concern.
Without objection.
I don't know that the Marshal Service is actually going to provide the protection that the judges need. We had a very good response to the Rhode Island judge who was subject to these threats. The court is very impressed and pleased with what the Marshal Service did in that instance. But it gets a little bit different when you start going after, seems always to be female family members. When you start going after spouses, wives and daughters and things like that, you know, if you go after a judge's daughter who lives in a different location, how does the Marshal Service respond to safety issues related to the daughter who lives in a different city, who's not even in the district for the marshals? What do you do about that? And do the marshals have any authority to do any investigative work to see what can be done to understand the threat posture that these judges are facing and who's behind it, and when is it deliberate, or are they constrained only to provide protection but not look into what the threat is? I think those are really important questions, and I hope that this judicial group will take a good hard look at that, and that's what my letter requests. The last thing I'd suggest is, this ain't that easy. If you are a district judge and you decide that a rule is unconstitutional or an action is unconstitutional, and that action plays out across multiple states, that, as the law of that case and as the law on that subject, ought to be applicable in other districts. And the idea that every time some action is deemed unconstitutional, you've got to file it 93 times to hit every single district before it can apply. I mean, I think we get into some very significant practicality issues as we mount this little crusade that runs exactly counter to where my Republican colleagues were when the shoe was on the other foot.
Thank you, Senator White.